Live from Honolulu, Hawaii, it's Baptized by Fire. And here's your host, Justin Baptiz.
Welcome back to another episode of Baptized by Fire, Conversations with Justin, where we dive into the stories, struggles, and triumphs of our incredible guests. And I'm your host, Justin Baptiz. And we are here with a very special guest. He is now the 6th program history and head coaching at Chaminade University. And we're just talking a few minutes ago. It's a pleasure to have this guy here. He's been doing it all. I mean, he's been coaching at all the levels of college basketball and has had quite the success. You may have seen this guy at North Dakota, Big Sky, coach of the conference year, and has made it to quite some tournaments in his career, but none other than less, one of the best in the business. We welcome here today, Coach Travis Brewster, the new head coach of Chaminade Silverswords. How you doing, my friend?
Well, great. Appreciate it. That was quite the introduction there. So, I'm kind of more of a low-key guy, but I appreciate it and really excited to be here.
Absolutely. Now, congratulations on all the success in your career. You're now the program's 6th head coach in program history at Chaminade University. What attracted you to Chaminade? And obviously, the big question is, what do you hope to bring to the Silverswords?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I was really excited about the culture of Hawaii. That's just something that really excited me, just to be able to be a part of a culture that really embraces people. That was a big one for me. And the other part was just the challenge of trying to build a program up. That's just something that really excites me. And then Dr. Bunning, obviously our director of athletics, I've worked under him before in North Dakota when he was our AD, when I was an assistant. And the vision that he has for athletics, and obviously the vision our president has for the university and athletics, really intrigued me. But with the Silverswords part of it, we got to make it fun, man. We got to build some McCabe magic so people want to come and watch. We got to put some points on the board, which is really odd because I'm a defensive guy when I played. But it's one of those things where I want us to be exciting, where people want to bring somebody along and go, hey, this is a fun group to watch.
Absolutely. You mentioned about what you're hoping to bring for this program. Obviously, you've have had quite success in your career just in coaching. I got to ask you, what's been the keys to your success in head coaching?
I've been fortunate to attract the right people. It always comes down to people. X and O's are great, but it comes down to the people, and really having that tough character and work mindset is really attributed to it. Now, I just talked about scoring, so we really work on the fundamentals of putting the ball in the hole and sharing the basketball and having that overall team experience. It's always funner to watch it when that ball moves a little bit. And, people go, oh, you taught them that. But some of it, I really attribute to the players being in sync with each other and having that synergy working through the motion. And so, that's the biggest part about it. But, that work ethic is a big one for me because that's how I was brought up, thankfully, by my parents. And, I just try to carry that over everywhere I've been.
Now, you coached at multiple levels, NCAA, Division II, and obviously the NAIA. You mentioned about what it's like to be a part of the now Silverswords ohana family and how you plan to build the team culture there. But just coaching at the 3 levels that you've throughout your career, how do you feel this experience will prepare you for your role at Chaminade?
Well, the thing is, I've been exposed to, all sorts of different levels of players, from professional players that could have been in the WNBA to players that, that just had the aspiration of playing and grew and developed into a more prominent player. And I value all those roles. And the big part for me is being able to develop the person first and foremost. And then that player starts to develop a little bit more as they develop that confidence. And, I've been fortunate to attract the right ones. And, don't get me wrong, it hasn't been easy, because you can't be 100%. That's just impossible. And, but building a culture really comes down to the players. The culture never graduates. And so when you have those type of young people playing, you start to realize how special it is, and you start embracing even the smallest moments, simply from me getting the name wrong on a play call to somebody tripping on the floor where it's almost comical, like slapstick comedy, and you embrace those moments. But going through airports to riding on buses to even helping them out, just life. And so that's the part that really is going to make our program soar.
You mentioned about making the program soar, and just the experiences of what you've have just shared. It's all just about experiencing life and just living in the moment of everything that you're doing. Now, obviously, Chaminade, their highest winning games, I think, has been 7. Last year, they finished 6-20.
Yeah.
What will be your first steps in turning the program around? And as far as just the recruiting pitch, I know that you might have recruited in a lot of different areas, but when you're thinking about just turning this program around and just how you're going to go about recruiting, what are the first steps, and what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Well, I watched some film, and obviously one of the big things I noticed was just putting the ball in the hole. So you got to recruit some kids that can score. But this is probably one of my easier recruiting places. Obviously North Dakota is a little bit challenging because where it's located demographically. Some people call it the edge of the world, but it's not. It's right there on the border of Canada. I've had players from Australia up there. I've had players from Arizona, California. So, being able to recruit that way, that's great. And then obviously being in the Chicagoland area, that was a different way to recruit because a lot of talented players in the area. And so, now here I am, and I'm selling sunshine, rainbows, but I'm also selling the experience of being around great people. Just walking around and being embraced by the people of the island and our culture has been awesome. And I'm going to sell that part of it. And, the other part is we're going to win. It's going to take a little bit of time, but winning isn't predicated only on wins and losses. It's how you play the game. And if you play the game a certain way, the wins and losses start to escalate at a higher level. And when that focus becomes about the process, it's a lot better for us. And, for me, being a kind of a role player in my collegiate career, playing junior college, coaching junior college, and eventually playing overseas, it's allowed me to know what it takes to have that growth. And as long as you have people that want to grind and work together, it's going to be exciting. But you get a chance to be a part of history, and a lot of people don't realize that. Everybody wants to be a part of those programs that are on the highly successful end, like a Point Loma, who's already up there. But when you're part of the foundation that starts building, it changes you, it changes the program, but more importantly, it builds a confidence around the people you're with, and you start becoming an average of some winners. And you start looking at things a little bit differently in life. And I'm really excited about that opportunity to build that type of program.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you talk about basketball, obviously, basketball has changed throughout the years. And you could tell there's a slight difference on just Division I and Division II. I've always felt like Division II is a lot more competitive than Division I. And that's just my opinion. I feel like Division II, a lot of players have more to show, more to prove.
Yep.
I don't know if you believe in that philosophy or whatnot, but that's just my thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I played Division I, but I played at a small Division I back in like 1991, right? So it's a little bit different nowadays. Like you said, it's evolved. And so, the school that I went to is really the same size as Chaminade. And, you got to have that chip on your shoulder when you play against the big boys, so to speak. And in Division II, it's the same thing. You really need to have that edge about yourself to be able to play and to make some of that magic happen in the women's program. We got to attract the right people that want to do it. But, it's such a better balance in one aspect for the young people, for their experience. But the portal's changed a lot of things. NIL has changed a lot of things. Revenue shares changed a lot of things. And it's going to trickle into Division II. It's going to happen. It's just not a question of if, it's just when is it going to hit your particular program, and we have to be prepared for that. But proven stuff is one thing, but living it out is another. And when you have the idea, I want to prove it, then you start living it, and that becomes your norm of every day. And that's what we got to strive to do.
Now, you've been a head coach for quite some time now. You've seen the landscape of basketball and the way that things have changed. How has your coaching philosophy evolved over time? And since you've been a head coach for years, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned?
Well, you know, it's changed from the aspect of, do what I say and don't question it, to now you have to explain the why. And when you explain the why, that's kind of the transitional piece. But now we're at the point in coaching and teaching is that you're explaining the why, but you're also explaining why you care to teach them the why. And when you teach the reason you care about them as people, they understand why you're teaching them better. And that's probably the biggest thing that's changed. And obviously, it's not so much defensive minded anymore. There's defense involved, but now it's about scoring, and that part's evolved. But when you look at the great coaches, and I look at a Vivian Stringer to, John Thompson, John Chaney, I wouldn't be sitting here without those people. And now you got the coaches like a Kenny Brooks that's doing it, and Neil Ivey, and I look at those things and it's different. We have a lot more responsibility as coaches to show we're doing it the right way, and it doesn't mean we don't get it wrong sometimes, but the key is we own it, and then we turn around and we show the young people why we're owning it and why it's important for us to own it, and how we're going to teach them to be able to own certain situations and not make the same mistakes. And so, I'm affectionately known as Brew Bear by most of my players. And, you kind of go, well, what does that mean? And they understand is that, there's going to be an intensity level that comes to it, but I'm soft as, a teddy bear can be on the backside of it. And, I want them to understand that, but we got to have a little bit of ferociousness about ourselves as well. And that's why they call me Brew Bear. And, it's stuck, which is, they give me, I got a Brew Bear in my office. So it's kind of funny.
I wonder if there's going to be any Chaminade Brew Bears coming around. What do you think? Some plush toys, plush dolls talking about over there?
Yeah, I hope so. That means I'm doing a good job, and I'm doing the right thing for them. So that'll be fun.
Now, when your success of basketball at Chadron State, your team ranked 7th in the RMAC in three-pointers. Is outside shooting focus, is that part of your offensive system, you would think?
Oh, absolutely. With their motion, everybody's got to be able to shoot the basketball and put it in the hole. It's positionless basketball is the game now. And that's when you see, Kevin Durant, for example, who's 7 feet tall, playing on the perimeter. You see, even like a Caitlin Clark who shoots it from deep, but you also look at her; she's very good in the post. Asia Wilson. So you have to be able to stroke the basketball to play it for me. That's just the way it is. And, a lot of people want to shoot it, but we need a lot of people that are going to make it. There's a big difference in that aspect. And, I just think it's a lot more fun for everybody too, when, you have the green light because you've earned it, and you play a lot more loose and have a lot more passion for the game. So we're going to, you got to be able to shoot it, and at my previous stop, obviously that was something that wasn't done. We set the record for school history, being able to shoot the basketball from the outside, and, and again, being able to recruit, that was probably the bigger thing, is that I hadn't had a recruiting class really come into play until that past year. And it's going to be kind of a little bit of the same process, but, I'm excited about the group. I've talked to all the players, and, they're a hardworking group and they get it. And, just got to get them acclimated a little bit of how I do some things, but at the same time, let them know, hey, this is your team and we're going to adjust accordingly.
Yeah. I mean, Hawaii is such a difference, compared to the mainland. And, I would say basketball is definitely growing out here, which is a great thing, because there are some talented athletes, who are either from Hawaii or come from the mainland and make a mark in Hawaii. So definitely, it's going to be interesting to see just the turnaround and what happens. But as I mentioned, in coaching, I mean, you've done a lot of extraordinary things. I mean, let's talk about Saint Xavier. I'm sure you know about that program.
Yeah.
Your team went 21-1 conference play. What was the key to that dominant season?
Well, I got hired in October with that team, and probably the biggest thing with that group is that the relationship piece was the biggest thing that I focused on when I first got there. So for a little bit, we were kind of a little ragtag when we were out on the floor, and but we as a group evolved. But the biggest thing is they knew that, hey, this guy is about us, and to go into the historic program that Bob Hallberg started and built, and Corey Irvin did a great job, and she was there before me as well, and being the third coach. I really focused on that relationship piece, and so that took some time, some work, and but we got after it. They're a tough group. They got that city ball to them, and that made it really fun because we kind of had the same persona right out the chute, and upset one of the top 5 teams in the country. In our second game of the year, and first game of the year, and the second game of the year beat a top 10 team. So it really was the relationship piece of them knowing that we could trust each other and communicate how they wanted to communicate. I think there's always a pedestal thing that you got to overcome as a head coach, and I'm really big on it's not just me talking, I'm receiving as well, and how you communicate, I'll adjust to it. And we had the really quiet ones, and we had the ones that were very strong in their faith, and then we had the ones that were really city. And so we kind of developed a communication style that worked for everybody and made it fun.
Yeah, you're big on history and having success in the programs that you've been able to turn around or have success in programs just in general. You were the 2-time Big Sky Conference Coach of the Year. I recently had a chance to interview one of the players who just transferred out of North Dakota. Shout out to NAIA Ferrera Horn from Canada.
Yep.
And, she mentioned about what it's like being in North Dakota. But for you, obviously, North Dakota was big for you. You led them to the NCAA tournament, the first in their program history. And you've been to other, big tournaments as well. You were the WNITs and the Basketball Invitational. I mean, there's so many different names of these tournaments that they have out now. But leading North Dakota to its first NCAA tournament appearance, what did you learn from that experience that you can apply at Chaminade?
Well, it changes your program immensely, and the biggest thing that I noticed after we made that tournament is just that it changed our recruiting. It changed our perception of how people looked at us. And so then a new responsibility came along of maintaining that level of excellence and success. And so that became a little bit harder. We were fortunate enough to, win another conference title, but it really changed just the perception of, how people viewed the program and viewed the people that were in the program. And that was great, and North Dakota is a little different. We were up there, my family, we were up there 17 years in all. And one of the reasons I had went to that program again was just some of the people that were involved with it. I had a college teammate that played on the men's side, Greg McDermott. I had interviewed with him when he was at Northern Iowa, and he talked highly of it. And then Coach Glass, who actually coached in Hawaii, was the head coach that I started up there with. And so all on the men's side. But the thing that I just noticed was you really had that ingrained feeling of people. And so, when you win a tournament, conference tournament, go to the NCAA tournament, it's a big deal. And, the community really realized that. And so that made it really exciting for the young people. But when you look at your recruiting, it changes you, even if you don't want to change, and you have to adjust a little bit. And now you have to filter a little bit differently of the individuals that you're recruiting. And so that helped out a lot in that aspect. And for us, the biggest thing was we just really still wanted to keep that mainstay of hardworking individuals that had something to prove, but yet we're still talented. And, we were fortunate to be able to still attract those type of players.
Now, as far as attracting certain players, obviously we mentioned about the recruiting process of things. But as far as just, your coaching style, obviously you coached at 3 different levels, Division I, Division II, the NAIA, before you mentioned about defense. And that was a big part of your playing career, being the defensive MVP at Charleston Southern. So, being that you coached at the D1, the D2, the NAIA, how have you adjusted your coaching style? And being that defense was a big part in your playing career, will that influence your approach at Chaminade?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. You did your homework right there. I give you a shout out for that. But it has changed. And the thing about it is you got to remember when you look up there, that thing's called a scoreboard, not a stopboard. And so, everybody's like, oh, you got to get stops, and you do, but I figured out a little bit after playing in Europe. I wasn't getting bonus money for me getting defensive stops. You're giving me bonus money for points, and so it changed a little bit for me when I started realizing that. And you got to make that ball move to score moves, and you got to get up and down the floor without turning it over. And that was probably the biggest thing too with my first championship team at North Dakota was we turned it over 18 times a game. But we offset that we had a plus 9, I believe, rebound margin. And so that offset that. And so we have to be able to figure out those different ways to give ourselves more opportunities to score here. And, that's the biggest thing for me is I look up and I go, man, you got to put points on the board. I'll take 20 wins at 72 to 71. You're always 72. I'll be a hot mess, but at least we're on the plus side there, and that's how I look at it. Is and players enjoy scoring, fans enjoy watching scoring. Don't get me wrong; they enjoy seeing some defensive stuff and things like that. But what do you do after you steal the basketball anyway? You go down and score. So we just got to enhance those opportunities for ourselves. And I'm not shy about the 3-point line. I make no bones about it. If you're open, you're supposed to stroke it, and but I'm a guy too that really values mid-range basketball because I'm a Jordan fan. I hate to do that to people. I'm a Jordan guy. Some people are about LeBron and things like that, but I'm a Jordan guy. And so, I just look at that mid-range made him, deadly. And the better you are closer to the hoop, the easier it is to extend from the hoop. And I love stuff. I love it. But what makes him deadly now is he can get to the rim. And so I watch a lot of NBA stuff for that, and a lot of WNBA, because I really think there's some great coaches that are doing some great things in WNBA right now, and some great offensive sets. So that's how I look at it. Is we're gonna run some pin down action and some zoom action and things like that, but we got to space the floor to get some scores.
In regards to basketball and just your system and how you run things, obviously, we mentioned earlier about Chaminade and what this new role means to you. And you talked about, recruiting on the mainland and even just, that success and obviously, going to be recruiting here. Obviously, Chaminade is a unique location being in Honolulu, Hawaii. In regards to just the recruiting part of things, I know you mentioned about just how you've been able to recruit in your career, but, how are you going to leverage just the recruiting here in Hawaii? And, you've been known as a tireless recruiter. So what is your strategy for finding talent that fits Chaminade?
Yeah. So, the biggest thing is I believe in the bullseye approach, right? We got to try to keep our best players here instead of letting them go to the mainland and play. That's first and foremost. And that's going to be a battle because, sometimes they just want a different view of things. But, we do play on the mainland. So that's you'll get that. And then obviously expanding obviously to the mainland a little bit, recruiting in Australia, New Zealand is going to help. But you got to take care of home first. There's just no getting around it. And if we can do that and keep our best players in the area, that's fun for everybody. It's fun for their families. It's fun for university. It's fun for the community. It's fun for us. And that's tough because people are starting to figure out, like you said, basketball is changing here, and people are really diving into it and ingraining themselves and becoming great basketball players. And, that's tough, but that's a tribute to what everybody's done before us. And so I'd like to continue that tradition, but, bullseye first, man. I got to try to keep at least one of our best players here if I can, and keep them with us, and really be able to, the portal's there for a reason. And I really believe that a lot of times people go away because they think the grass is greener, which is hard to believe, right? Because we're in Honolulu. But they find out that, you know what, I fit here, and sometimes they find a good spot where they go to. I just want the players to understand and the families to understand is what's the best for you is what I'm going to support. But I'm going to do everything I can to show you that Chaminade supports you and you can stay right here at home. But, it's going to be a challenge. It's exciting. It's a great opportunity.
Now, one of the biggest things, obviously, is player development in a basketball program. So what is your approach on improving individual skills?
Well, I always believe in segments in practice. And so we're always going to do a fundamental segment in practice, right? And that usually is in the beginning because that helps them get dialed in, helps their brain get it acclimated going for the day. And so, we're always going to work on some passing and basic shooting, even how to set a screen, where to set a screen, how to read a screen. And it's just going to be a basic fundamental to start the day, or even a closeout on the defensive side. I ain't gonna lie, our defensive segments are probably really, really short in the fundamental part, but at least you got the base. But if we do those segments, it's really going to help us. I divide it up where it's passing one segment, shooting one segment, defense another segment, and then we get into the nuts and bolts, so to speak, of the rest of practice. And that usually takes about 45 minutes total. Some days it's probably a little bit quicker than others. It just kind of depends how it's going. But we really got to keep dialing in on the fundamentals, and even dribbling, and understanding when to put it on the floor, how to put it on the floor, what is the angle, why I'm attacking the hoop versus why am I going with more of a flat angle, just to drag the defense away, you create another angle. And once we get that type of stuff established, we'll be really good.
Now, in coaching, you've had success in different regions, obviously the Midwest, the Rocky Mountains, and now Hawaii. Do you feel there's a difference as far as just like adapting recruiting in different areas?
Oh, absolutely. And there's just such a different style of ball, and it did all translate. The question is, can we get a good blend? And that's the thing about Hawaii that really excites me, and Chaminade, of course, with the educational pieces. We're going to get a good blend of basketball on the floor. And that just means we can adapt better, and then we can turn around and make people adapt to us. And that's the goal, is to really, in my opinion, make sure that we're playing our style of basketball and posing that on other teams when we play. And you know what? We might add one person from Jersey. We might add a person, obviously from maybe the Midwest, because I got some ties there. But at the same time, we're going to have our culture here, and we're going to impose that and mix that together, and it's going to be really sweet.
Now, you have mentioned about the NCAA transfer portal and how that's been a thing in college sports and athletics and whatnot. How are you going to be going about balancing high school players versus transfers?
Well, I use this analogy. My mom's going to be upset with me, and so is my dad, because I go, the portal's kind of like, in my opinion, it's kind of like prison. Anybody can go in, but not everybody's getting out. And so everybody's got their reason of why they went in there. And so you really have to do your homework to know why that person's in there. Are they looking to get closer to get back to home? Are they in there because, the style of play wasn't right? Were they in there because, they weren't getting their playing time? Were they, and so you have to do your homework. And I'm going to utilize the portal, I guess, more so to fill holes that maybe I can't fill from starting obviously here in Hawaii and then turn around and the recruiting. But I've utilized the portal, and I look to do that right away. Obviously, being hired and tap into that. But again, I look at that is you have to really do your homework. And some of that is also building that relationship because let's just say we have, a young person here that's playing and they decide to go play they go play at Cal Baptist. I just threw it out there, not saying that, but, and they go and they realize, hey, I'm too far from home. Oh, I remember talking to Coach Brewster at Chaminade. I'm going to go in the portal and tell them I want to come back home. And that's different, and a lot of times that's why I'm going to utilize the portal in that type of scenario. That's how I'm going to go about it. And, sometimes it'll be, I can't say 100% that way, but, there might be a time when it's positional, right? Where, I feel like, hey, we're just really lacking here. And this is a fix that we can go and attack and address right away. And we're going to do that. And, I really believe in my heart of hearts, though, that once you have that right relationship, the portal will be a lot easier to navigate.
Absolutely. I mean, with the NCAA transfer portal being such a big thing, I mean, it's often a question, okay, what's the percentage or the statistics on why people transfer and what are the real reasons why they do it? But everybody's got their opinions and needs. So I guess if the program fits, I mean, hopefully it's something that, they'll continue to want to stay consistent with and hopefully graduate, because it just seems like everybody's going here 1 year, graduated from this, being a grad transfer here, and it's a lot. But I'm sure as a head coach, you probably experienced the difference in years of that. So,
oh yeah. Well, and what is it? If I remember the statistic right, it's 33% of the kids that go in don't come out. You got to think about it like this with the portal. Yeah, as a college athlete, I go in. But you have to remember, every year there's a kid graduating from high school, there's a kid graduating from prep school, and there's a kid graduating from junior college. And you're competing against those kids, and then you're competing against grad transfers from either NAIA or Division I or Division II, depending on how it goes. So now it really becomes a lot tougher. And you really have to be careful about when you go in. I would, if I was to deal with a player, for example, that was looking at going in the portal, we'd have that discussion. I'd, show them statistics about it and say, here, this is what you're gonna battle against. And NAIA All-American wanted to transfer to Chaminade with a year to go as a grad transfer versus, a student that played sparingly but had good minutes and solid. A lot of coaches are going to side with the kid that was an All-American, and that's just kind of how it goes a little bit. And so it's got its challenges, it's got its perks. So you just got to understand how to navigate a little bit.
Decades of coaching, years of coaching for you, NAIA, NCAA, Division II. Do you see a difference in the way that it's been throughout the years? I mean, whether if it's competitiveness, coaching styles, players.
Yeah, absolutely, Justin. You hit it right on the head. Is that the competitiveness is always going to be there, but instead of having one player that's competitive at a different level, there's probably five, right? The other part about it is just how they approach the game with their time, and that's, Division II is obviously life balance, and so, for example, we can't work with them in the summer as coaches, but at the Division I level, you can work with them in the summertime. NAIA, you can do, you have full-fledged practices if you want to. You coach them in summer league, junior college, you can work with them a little bit. But the NCAA has such a different viewpoint, and, the Division I level is more of a business. That's the best way I can say it. Obviously, with revenue share, NIL, it's more of a business approach, and so you're expected to be there in the summer and do things with the coaches, strength staff. Whereas Division II, it's more of how's the culture in that program. Are the kids going to be there in the summer and stick around? Or are they going to be the type of culture too where they go away? And I've taken the philosophy from a guy named Robin Selvig at Montana. Robin's he amassed, I don't know, like 800 wins or something crazy in his career. And for a Division I coach, he never has players come in the summer other than work camp. And I've developed that thought process and mentality. Now I got to get camps going here, obviously, but really want to do that type of mindset where you come in, work your camp, and then go back home and you just take care of your business. And I really think that allows players to have a lot more growth, and they're more excited about coming back to the program and coming back to the school. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've noticed. I think a lot of times in Division One, kids start to experience a little bit of burnout or overworked, and it becomes really a job versus, playing for the passion of the game and the love of the game and what they have inside of them. So, and I was a Division One athlete, but I was built a little bit different in that aspect of it. I never felt that as a player. It was just, I was like, this is who I am, this is what I do, and I love it. And whereas Division Two and NAIA, the approach is a little bit different. And like I said, you're probably getting, 1 to 4 kids that are like that in Division Two, and maybe one out of 9 maybe in NAIA. In Division One, it's every kid's that way. So that's probably the biggest difference, but they're highly competitive.
Now, we mentioned earlier about players, or no, not players per se, coaches that, may have had Hawaii ties out here or may have coached in Hawaii or whatnot. So my question for you is, have you ever coached in Hawaii or been to Hawaii before landing this job, obviously, at Chaminade? And with the landscape of college basketball, I'm sure you probably have looked into the Pac-West Conference. What's your view on this Pac-West Conference and just what's your view on everything with that?
Yeah, well, Justin, I do have a little history with Hawaii. Vince Gu, right? Obviously, everybody knows who that is. And then Riley Wallace. I was recruited back in the day, to come out to either Hilo or Hawaii, and I fell in love with Charleston, South Carolina, where I went to school. But so I got a little tie that way, and I got a buddy that played at Hilo, a guy named Marcus Owens, that to this day we're great friends, and he was a beast over there. Like I said, I worked for Rich Glass, who worked out here as well, so I got that familiarity. But I looked at the Pac West, and it's different, right? And I really think we fit in that conference very well. I kind of attribute it a little bit to the Pac West as like a WCC type of feel, really up and down, and really move the basketball. And so we got some work to do to catch some of those programs up there, like Point Loma and things. But it's one of those ones where I'm really excited because our brand of play with the cultural toughness that we have naturally here, I really think that our players exude that and how hard they work. And I'm really excited to work with them and just kind of be that team that nobody wants to play anymore out of the Pac West. And obviously I have another tie where another school that I had previously been interviewed at to work at, and I'm not going to say the name because we're rivals, right? And so that's the way it goes. But I'm really excited about it, though. I think our young people are really chomping at the bit to be able to show, how well they developed and things. And so I'm excited for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously I could list the schools right now that I would say Pac West has its hands filled. I mean, we're talking about Dominican University, we're talking about Azusa Pacific, we're talking about Point Loma as being the juggernauts, I would say, in the Pac West. Even on the men's side of things, obviously Point Loma has had their success on the men's side, and with the men's, I feel like it's always, Hawaii Hilo is another one. Shout out to Kaniela Iona and what he's been able to do with that program and changed it, being a local boy from Hawaii and having that success playing there and coaching there. So Pac West is a very interesting conference. It's almost kind of like if you take the NBA, you take, okay, the West is the strong, and the East is kind of like, you don't know who's coming out the East. So I kind of look at it from that standpoint. So
that's an excellent way to put it, Justin. That's an excellent way to put it, and we want to be that team that people go, oh, we didn't expect that out of them. And not necessarily just because of the wins and losses, but just how we play, and really have, have people go, man, they're opposing themselves on us. And I love that you use the word juggernaut because that's my dad's word that he's taught me from just being his baby boy. I know that's hard to believe, but that's our family word, is juggernaut. And that's being a juggernaut. It takes a lot of work and a lot of persistence, and we want to be that coming out here, and that's going to take some time, but not too much time. So I'm gonna make sure of that, but it's going to take a little bit of time. But that Pac West is fun, and that travel is great, and we got the best of both worlds. We travel like a Division I school, and but yet we have a Division II schedule, and on the calendar, and that's awesome. We get those days off for Christmas and things, but that's a good point. I like how you put that. I'm going to use that. If you don't mind, I'm going to use that in my recruiting pitch.
You can use it, absolutely. You ain't got to credit me in it, but it's fine.
I'll give you credit. I'll give you credit, man. I'll give you credit.
Appreciate that. Now, before you got into coaching, obviously, you played professionally overseas. So how did that experience for you shape your coaching style? And, once you got into coaching, obviously you spent the last 8 years at North Dakota, multiple stints, women's, men's. So we talk about professionally playing overseas. How did that experience shape your coaching style? And since you had multiple stints at North Dakota, what kept drawing you back to just those certain programs? Because obviously, you coach the men's and you coach the women's as well.
Well, playing overseas was one of those things that it really shaped me because, I went over to try a tryout format. And so, you had to go over there and really prove yourself. And you had to have a edge about you and things. And, I didn't get picked up right away. A lot of people don't realize that. So I did a lot of like teaching, like just individual teaching on the court. I did a lot of, I even taught in the schools like PE, just so I could give myself that opportunity. And, it's a true story. I hitchhiked across Switzerland to get my first gig in Geneva. And because I wanted to save the money, so I'd have money for some food and stuff. And so I hitchhiked across and slept in a park because I didn't want to burn up that money because I want to make sure I had a great breakfast and I had money to get back to where I was trying to do some individual workouts and things, and made the team in Geneva, and it was great. And so I really learned how to count on yourself and plan and adapt to being more offensive minded. And I played for a guy named Hugo Harving in Zurich that was a Danish national coach, and I didn't understand everything he was saying to me all the time. I can tell you sometimes it wasn't good because I wasn't shooting the ball enough for him. And once I figured that out a little bit, it was a lot better. And it shaped my mindset to playing that more spacious FIBA style of play. I really enjoyed it and tried to adapt that a lot more in my coaching. And we kind of gravitated that way right now. If you look at it, there's a lot more space in the floor, a lot more higher skill set. And players are more skilled, in Europe because they've been working on that at a younger age. And we're starting to do that now here. And so that's really shaped my coaching. What drew me back to North Dakota? Well, the first time was just opportunity. The second time was just, it came down to people and actually being pursued to be wanted to come back there. The AD that helped out a lot. Like I mentioned before, Dr. Bunning was there when I was there, and that had a lot to do with it. And then a guy named Brian Faison took over for Dr. Bunning and pursued me to come back and be there and work. And they gave me my shot, and to be honest, being obviously culturally different, a lot of people in our culture didn't want that opportunity. And I saw it as an opportunity to move forward and to make it easier for somebody to come behind me. And so that's how I embraced it. And it was cold, man. I'm a little soft when it comes to that cold, man. Negative 20 is no joke. I'm going to tell you that one right now. But I know you're New York, so you know what I'm talking about. That cold is something, man. But it was just such a great opportunity to be around the right people. And, people come and go, unfortunately. And I was lucky enough to be there around the right people, and they really helped me out. And that's how I look at it here. Being wanted is such a blessing. and to be embraced, even to find my place where I'm living at right now is just so exciting. The lady and her family, they've embraced me, and they're taking care of me like I'm one of their own. And that's so, it just brings a smile on my face in that aspect. But when you're wanted and you can be embraced by people and give that affection back wholeheartly, I welcome that. That's the biggest reason. Like North Dakota, I went back, spent my time there, and now here I am, and I look forward to doing that here.
Looking back, well, before I even ask you that question, being at Chaminade, knowing that it is a Division II program, obviously, recruiting is going to be a big thing, knowing that it is in Hawaii, knowing that Chaminade is a private university, but I'm sure you know about that already. When it comes to just scholarships and the recruiting pitch and how you're going to bring players out here, how do you see that working out without getting into the whole business side of things? How do you see things working out?
Well, that's a great question, Justin. And what I really look at is, first and foremost, yes, we are private, but we're in such a public place, and our degree is so strong. And so you're going to get that quality education still within this, I guess, vast cultural experience, right? To being exposed to so much, but yet still be taken care of, and being able to have that personal touch. And that's going to be the first thing we're going to talk about is, hey, you're not going to play forever. I learned that the hard way, and you're just not. And so that education is going to be a key component of what we're talking about. And the other part is just, you're going to be known as a person walking around on campus. And you know what? You're going to be recognized when you go to the grocery store, or you go to the movies or what have you. Somebody's going to recognize you, and that's going to be the big sell. And obviously scholarship's an important component, but I have to do my job in that and help continue to grow that as they've already started, and really, attract the right students, and luckily I went to a small private school, so I get it. And being able to go, hey, academically, you're going to qualify for this, and then we can add this piece to it with the athletic scholarship and really attract great people. But again, being embraced and having that ohana type of feel, there's nothing like it. And you can't fake it. I know there's a lot of people that scream family and things like that. And you got to exude that. And that's what we're going to do with our program and culture, is exude that ohana feel and education. And once we do that, the rest will take care of itself.
Now, looking back on your coaching career, what are you most proud of in your coaching career so far? And is there anything that you wish you would have known when you first started out in your career?
That's a toughie. The most thing that I'm really proud about my coaching career is that I haven't chased the status. I've really maintained relationships with players. And you do the best you can with all of them, but there's certain ones that you have a stronger bond with, and they have a bond with you. But I tell them, hey, you give me 4 to 5 years of your life, and you have me for the next 40 to 50, right? As a resource, and I guess the toughest part is that I would wish I would have known is that with social media now, you're really, really under the microscope. And, as a bigger dude, I'm 6'6" and 255 pounds, and, obviously a minority. That's one part. But with the social media, you can't control it. And you have to learn how to navigate that a little bit better. That's been a little bit of a challenge for me, because I'm still the old school guy on the telephone with handwritten letters and things like that, handshakes and hugs and things. And so I've had to learn on the fly on that one, and it's been a curve for me, but I've adapted and adjusted.
When you talk about just adapting and adjusting at these different programs, obviously, you mentioned throughout the interview just about picking the right people and having the success with just having everybody being on the same page with everything. I know that I mentioned your keys to your success, and a lot of your success has been built on right people, right coaches, the right opportunities, just the right time. So how have you been able to do it? I mean,
it's just been I really attribute a lot of it to my parents, how they did things in life. And, they're retired now, but they're blue collar people and they're all about people. I was fortunate to be exposed to the corporate side of the workforce and they've both been in higher level positions in their careers, but they worked their way up there. And so, the thing that was always ingrained in me is just, you can't teach heart and you can't measure heart. And so you can feel it. And when you meet the right people, like such as yourself, I can tell that why you're doing this isn't anything other than you got that immense love for it. And you can feel that, and you can see it coming out of you. And that's just something that I thought was goofy as a kid. My parents were talking about it. I was like, oh, these people are crazy. They're old. But you know what? They're right. And I've learned that way. And I've been fortunate to have some coaches along the way that have done that for me as well and really bought into me. Just from, junior high, a guy named Rick Williams played professionally a little bit. And, he's my dad's childhood friend. How wild is that? And then, playing for a guy who was tied in with John Wooden, to my junior college coach, who was the only guy to offer me a basketball scholarship. And, Gary Edwards, who gave me a chance to play Division I at a small school with a good foundation. Like you start realizing how important that is. It really helps young people gain a level of confidence about themselves. And I was fortunate enough to have that. And I want to give that back. And Chaminade just exudes that level of excellence about people. And I'm really excited for it.
Absolutely. Well, I'm definitely excited for you. As I mentioned before, congratulations on being the 6th program head coach in history here. I was shocked when I found out it was, they've only had
you just told me, so now I'm shocked too.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm excited for you. As I mentioned before, congratulations. Wishing you all the best and all the success, and looking forward to seeing you in November and seeing what Silverswords Ohana has in store.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And best thing I can say is let's do it.
Appreciate it.
And that concludes another conversation with Justin. You can reach Justin Baptiz on any of his social media handles listed here. So, until we meet again, remember, it's Baptiz by Fire.